What is up, everyone? Movie Wayne back again with another video. Today is just going to be another end of month vlog where I talk about everything I watched in the month of May 2024. I can't believe it's June already. That has absolutely flew by, hasn't it? And now some of these movies are on Blu-ray, some of them are on the cinema, and some of them are on streaming. You know the jazz, I do these every month now. So let's just get into it with the first thing that I watched in the month of May, and that is a film that was sent to me by my good friend Tom180. Most of you will probably know him. He's always in the comments section. He watches a lot of people in the community. So thanks so much, Tom, for sending me Logan Lucky. Sorry if there's any glare on the Blu-rays, guys. I'll try and avoid it as much as I can. Yeah, this is something that I didn't quite know what I was getting into. I know a lot of people rate it quite highly, but I just knew it was about a robbery, and that was about it. So I went into it. I thought it was a true story. It's actually not, from what I believe. And it's basically about these two brothers who plan to rob this speedway while this big event is taking place, like the Coca-Cola Cup or something like that. I'm not really big on motorsport. I haven't got a clue. It's something to do with that. The biggest race of the year, anyway. And they decide to rob what's in there while the race is on. So that is like that is distracting everyone else, basically. And they do it with the help of Daniel Craig, who's in jail. And they try and break him out for a day and, try and use him to help with the robbery and stuff. It's a very strange movie. I did like it up to a point. But I think some of the editing and the way it was made was a little bit strange for me. It's not your everyday type of heist movie. There was just some weird dialogue and stuff in there, but the characters were good. The all-star cast in here. You got Shannon Tatum, Adam Driver, Hilary Swank, and Katie Holmes, Daniel Craig, of course. So yeah, it was fine. I quite enjoyed it. I fell asleep the first time I watched it due to tiredness, so I did watch it again the next day from the start. So I've seen the first half of the movie twice. But yeah, it wasn't bad. Thanks a lot, Tom, for sending me this one. That is Logan Lucky. Next up, I watched Dev Patel's directional debut, I believe, and that is Monkey Man. Now, this is a film that I had watched the trailer for a couple of months ago, and I was highly anticipating it. And this is about this guy who wants a little bit of a revenge mission, really. And it all is done with like Indian subculture and stuff, so there's a lot of heavy emphasis on that, especially in the middle of the film. And I think there's a lot of good action scenes in here, but not absolutely stunning ones like John Wick or anything. However, there was a scene involving an axe where I was just like, oh, holy shit. So yeah, it's fine with the action and stuff, but I think there's a lot to live up to with action movies these days, with the stunts and the set pieces are done to absolutely eye-watering effect. And I don't think Monkey Man quite goes there. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that it slows down in the middle of the film, but when we're getting to find out the lore and stuff about the characters and where they came from, etc., using the Indian subculture and stuff, I thought that was the most interesting part of the movie, actually. Well, Dev Patel was great in this, as usual, and it's a good directorial debut from him. I know Jordan Peele is seeing a lot of potential in this from his Monkey Paw production company, and he decided to distribute the film into cinemas, so good on him for doing that. I thought it was fine. It's not one that I'm in a rush to rewatch or anything, but it's for an action movie with a little bit of mythology thrown in there as a little bit of a difference. I thought it was a pretty good film. So that is Monkey Man. Next up, we have Arcadian, starring Nicolas Cage and Jaden Martell, and another young actor whose name has escaped me. But this is basically the end of the world, and Nicolas Cage and his two sons are trying to survive. And there is a little bit of an added twist on that, because at night, you sort of have to barricade yourself in your home, because these monsters will come and try and kill everyone. And it's kind of like a quiet place, but instead of sound, it's just when the sun goes down, basically. Kind of like vampires, but in monster form. And they sort of try and get in your house and everything. And it is a very dangerous world that we are living in here. So in the daytime, these characters will scavenge for stuff, and then they'll sort of make sure their house is all secure, and then just basically wait the night out. Now, what I liked about this is there was a little bit of a romance story going on with not Jaden Martell's character, the other son in this movie, this girl who lives at a farm just a little bit up the road, and it gave you a sense of hope for the characters. There is something to strive for here in a world that all seems lost. I thought the creature design on these monsters was absolutely brilliant. There were some really creepy scenes in here, especially one where this monster is trying to reach through this room to grab a character, and they've got these unique little features and stuff that sort of show you glimpses of what they're capable of, and they do seem very dangerous. You can see why these characters are barricading themselves in their homes and stuff, and this makes for a great third act where it all goes out into the action sort of thing. So yeah, I thought this was a really strong horror movie for the year, one of my favorites of 2024, and I highly recommend it. If you are expecting a lot of Nicolas Cage action, though, he's a little bit of a backseat here. It's more about the two sons, or mainly one of the sons here. So don't expect a big Nicolas Cage film if you're a heavy Nick Cage fan. But I thought this was a great movie. So that is Arcadian. Next up, we have not so much of a great horror movie, and that is Taro. Yes, this is one that you just see every day, really. A bunch of characters go and rent this mansion out to get high and drink, and they find a deck of tarot cards, and one of them can actually read these tarot cards and reads everyone's fortunes, and that sort of spirals off into a Final Destination type movie where these characters who had their fortune read are killed off in accidental circumstances, or what is made to look like accidental circumstances. Now, the big problem with this film, it is heavy on the 12A, PG-13, whatever you want to call it, rating, where every time there's a kill, it kind of cuts away. And I think this movie would have benefited so much from the gore. The characters are, whilst not being too unlikable, they're just nothing characters. There's nothing to them. There's no personality. And it's just one of them movies that uses the same formula like a bunch of other movies that we've seen this year. Characters get themselves into a situation, they find a little bit of history about the situation, get someone who's been there, done that to help them out, and then try and defeat this thing. Yeah, I mean, the jump scares were all over the place. I mean, not all over the place, more like telegraphed, should I say. One thing I did like about this movie, though, is every time someone is killed, the card, like the demon in that card, so for example, someone gets Hell Priest, this Hell Priest would appear before their death. I thought that was quite interesting. There's one character who gets like this Joker, Jester type character, and it's following him all around this apartment block. Every time he gets in a lift, he gets off on another floor, and it's there waiting for him. I thought that was quite creepy. But apart from that, this is not a movie that I'm ever going to remember too well, and I'm probably never going to revisit again. It's a very light horror movie that is just made for 12-year-olds. Not a great film. It's not worst of the year, though. A lot of people have been saying that. I don't think that is the case, but it's just not a very good movie. So that is Taro. Next up, we have Love Lies Bleeding. I was very interested in this film. This is from director Rose Glass, who has brought us Saint Maud, which was a great directional debut, I thought. And this was another great follow-up to that movie. Not related, different story, but a great follow-up for a director with two movies there. This is about Kristen Stewart's character, who works in this gym, and she is fascinated with the new girl who comes to the gym, played by Katie O'Brien. And she's like this muscular character. She's going in for this competition. She's like a weightlifter. And Kristen Stewart and her develop this romance. And what she doesn't know about Kristen Stewart is that her father is like this big gangster, and he's responsible for a lot of bad things. And Katie O'Brien's character sort of gets mixed up in that, and it becomes like a love story where they are both trying to protect each other a little bit there. This really reminded me of a movie with Val Kilmer in called Kill Me Again. I don't know why, it just reminded me of it. I don't think it's even the same story or anything like that, but I was just getting a lot of vibes from that film. I'd have to watch that movie again. It was been a very long time, but it just really reminded me of that film. But yeah, I thought Katie O'Brien was brilliant in this movie. She's a wonderful actress from what I've seen her in. And Kristen Stewart was fine as well. Good chemistry on screen between the two. And I like the way it goes down a little bit of a dark path. There's something at the end of this movie which will turn a lot of people off. It's very A24. And for me, I was like, you didn't really have to do that, but they did it anyway. But it didn't detract for how much I liked the film. didn't ruin the ending or anything like that. But it is in my top 5 of the year so far. I really enjoyed it. I knew by the trailer this was going to be a movie for me, and it delivered. So that is Love Lies Bleeding. Next up, we have The Strangers. I gushed about how much I hated this movie in my review over on my horror channel. I'll leave the link to the horror channel down below, guys, if you want to go and check it out. But this is a film I just do not like. I watched it in 2008 when it first came out after lots of, people hyping it up and stuff. And it did look like my type of movie. I thought this looks awesome. And it's just a very boring movie. It's a very dull affair. People will disagree, I know, but this is basically about two very unlikable characters played by Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, who are just a couple who are sort of at each other's throats because something's gone wrong. They turn up at this house and these strangers invade the house. And it's all very long, drawn-out scenes where characters are, with these master assailants, are coming behind the shadows. It is done well the way it's filmed, I'll give it that. But then it's just a telegraph jump scare after like 10 minutes of characters getting followed around the house with one of the worst endings I've ever seen in a horror movie. It doesn't even make sense. It's trying to be so clever with its ending. I did not like this film. I've spoken about it enough over on the horror channel. I mean, it just is not a very good movie, in my opinion. I've watched this twice now, and I just do not like it. So I think The Strangers costume design is cool, though there are some nicely directed moments. The writing is terrible. It sort of hints to things at times, and it just never goes there. Like, you think you're going to delve into the character's past and stuff, and it just doesn't. It's just... Scott Speedman puts in a terrible performance here. He really is never looking like he's scared. He's never on edge. And Liv Tyler is just great on me. I hate the way she says James in this movie. Like, she's always like, James, James, James. And she does the same in The Incredible Hulk with Bruce Banner. Bruce. She really just grates on me. I'm not a fan of her as an actress, unfortunately. So this movie, yeah, that is The Strangers. Now, next up is going to be a first time watch for me, and it is going to be my older release of the month. I can't believe I have never gotten to this movie until now, but I was going to go and see it at the cinema when it first came out in 2009, and someone said to me, oh no, you don't want to go and see that movie because if you don't know anything about the comics or the novel, you're not going to get it. And then some people started to tell me that that was bullshit and I will get it. And I did get it. And that is Watchmen on 4K. The ultimate cut. This is nearly 4 hours long. I think it's like 3 hours and 40 minutes. I absolutely loved this movie. What a fantastically directed film from Zack Snyder this was. Me and my wife watched it and we both loved it. This is like the anti-superhero film, and what I mean by that, it doesn't follow the same formula as every superhero movie you see today. It does something totally different here. And this is basically about Dr. Manhattan, who is the only superhero in the world. He's kind of like Superman. And these I think they're ex-cops, these characters, and they become vigilantes and dress up and stuff and sort of go out on the streets and pretend to be superheroes, really. But there is one only really superhero, and that is Dr. Manhattan. It's a very, very convoluted movie to explain to you within a minute here on the channel, but I'm sure most of you have seen this. I had no idea Patrick Wilson was in this movie, and he's kind of like the star. I thought he was brilliant in this. Probably my favourite performance from him, to be honest. Just all great characters in this film. I loved how Zack Snyder directed this movie. It's fucking phenomenal the way he filmed it. I don't really have too many gripes with it. The last 20 minutes was a little bit of a disappointment, just the way it played out. I wish it would have had a better ending, really. It's not bad or anything. It just doesn't seem to fit nicely with the rest of the film. Rorschach, what a character he is, man, played by the guy who played Freddy, Jackie Earle Haley. I just didn't even know that going in either. I think I just knew hardly anything about this movie, and it just enhanced it for me. Now, my friend Terry in work said that this is probably his favourite comic book movie, and that sort of got me interested. And then I heard Paul Tams and Ellis from Total Movie Recall on their live stream. They done a Zack Snyder rank and they were talking about Watchmen. I thought, I've just bought that and this is pushing me even more to watch it. I had a great time with it. I absolutely loved it. The ultimate cut as well. I think it's got an animated story in there, which is the only added thing from the director's cut. I could be wrong, but yeah, I even enjoyed that animated part as well. So yeah, Watchmen, my older release of the month. I definitely can't wait to watch this again. I absolutely loved it. And I can see why people worship Zack Snyder now on Twitter. I'm just joking there, but yeah, man, he's made some great films. So that is Watchmen. Next up, I watched The Strangers Prey at Night. Now, I wasn't really looking forward to this, but I'd heard so many good things about it. And because the new one was coming out, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, I decided to revisit The Strangers and this one. And you know what? Well, I didn't revisit this because it was the first time I watched, but this was so much better than the original Strangers. The movie moves at a very fast pace. It's not a big slog to get through. And there's some great kills in this movie, unlike the two-man body count in the first film. I thought the Strangers were way more menacing in this film. And it might be because they've been doing this for a couple of years or whatever, but man, they were just great villains in this movie. I thought the central characters were a lot more likable than Scott Spearman and Liv Tyler's character. And this all takes place in kind of like a caravan park, which made it a little bit more interesting than the house. The pool scene is great, which is what I'd heard everyone talk about, but there's so many other set pieces there where like the guy with the bag on his head sort of pulls up, gets in the car with a character who's trapped. I thought that was really creepy. And then there's like a park where, you know, we have swings and stuff, and one of them's hiding in this tunnel and the stranger is already in there, and you just as she lights up a lighter, this, you know, doll face or whatever it is in there. So I thought that was pretty cool. I just thought this was a much better movie, a much more enjoyable experience. It was almost like a slasher film instead of a home invasion film. I had a great time with it, and I would definitely watch it again. I am going to try and add that onto the collection. So that is The Strangers Prey at Night. So of course we had Furiosa coming out this month, which I am going to speak about very shortly. But before that, I decided to revisit Mad Max Fury Road. I'd only ever seen this movie once, and I wasn't really on the big hype train with Mad Max Fury Road. I enjoyed it when I watched it, but I just didn't get the whole thing. And on rewatch, it did enhance for me a little bit, but I'm still not quite there with calling this movie a masterpiece or anything. But it is a very, very well-made film, especially with the action. Now, George Miller, who directed this, who made all the Mad Max films, he has definitely got a massive talent with how to make action spectacle, and this movie shows that. What I can't really get on board with this movie is there's just no story. I mean, it shows a little bit of it at the start, and gives you little snippets here and there as to what's happened. But this is basically just a massive chase for an hour and 50. How long was it on for? An hour and 40 minutes or something? 2 hours? 120 minutes, 2 hours. So yeah, it's basically that. But I'd say at least 3/4 of that is just one big car chase. But it's always fun to watch. You know, I think Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron are great in this film, especially Charlize Theron. She was the standout character for me. It's basically her, she has this big rig and she's trying to get these hostages that have been taken. She gets them in this rig and basically drives to this promised land with all these people chasing them who are just insane characters. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot more on this rewatch than I did the first time I watched it, but I'm just not quite there with how much everyone else loves it. But it is a great action movie. It's got to be said. I'm not a massive fan of The World. Yeah, I mean, just something about it just didn't appeal to me too much in this movie, although that did improve on Furiosa, which I'll talk about in a minute. So that is Mad Max Fury Road. Next up, we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, I'm a big fan of the first three movies. This one, it doesn't feel like it really fits within that trilogy for me. Okay, we hear the name Caesar and stuff. It's taking place hundreds of years after Caesar, and people are using him as kind of a god or a Jesus, and he's kind of made this religion now, but some people are using that to sort of twist the words and the teachings that Caesar had said, and it is basically monkeys or apes ruling the planet now, and humans are very far between. This movie was very slow. It took me a while to get into it, and the new characters we are introduced to, it took me a while to warm up to them, and in the end I didn't really love them anyway. I thought they were fine. The villain wasn't anything to go by. It's very hard to put my finger on why I didn't enjoy it as much. It just feels like a very slow-paced movie and a little bit more of a slog compared to how entertaining and fun them other three movies are. Now, it was fine. I gave it 3 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. Is visually a stunning film. There's a lot to like in the third act, but overall, I just wasn't feeling this one compared to the other 3. It just seemed a little bit off to me, unfortunately. So it's probably my most disappointing movie of the year, but I still liked it to a certain extent. So that is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Next up, we have The Strangers Chapter 1. Now, after watching The Strangers 2008 and then seeing the trailer for this, my hopes were dashed. I thought this looks like the exact same movie as the first film. And you know what? In many ways, it is. It does the same things where 2 characters go to a house and people try and invade. But there's certain things that happen in The Strangers 2008 that happen in this one at the same amount of times, where a character will come to the house unbeknownst to him that it's being invaded and accidentally killed. Stuff like that. The ending is very similar, although one thing does change it a little bit, which got me looking forward to Chapter 2. But my head is a little bit frazzled with this because I enjoyed this a hell of a lot more than the 2008 film. I'm putting it down to the main 2 characters in this one because they were just a little bit more likable. Considering they do make a lot of stupid mistakes, I just like them a little bit more than Liv Tyler and Scott Spearman, and I cared about them more. I wanted them to get out of the situation. They seemed like a cutesy couple who had a bright future ahead of them, so it gave the movie some stakes there, whereas I couldn't care less about the other 2 characters in the first film. Also, we do go outside the house a little bit here, like the first 20 minutes is sort of in this weird town, and then her boyfriend will go out later on to get something, and we go into the town again. It's not all based in the house, basically. And I thought it was a little bit better shot. I thought Renny Harlin brought a little bit more fun to the movie. It's not really a dull, boring affair. I just enjoyed it a little bit more, even though it's basically the same film. But the main 2 characters is what I'm going to put it down to as the main reason why I liked it a little bit more. And I am looking forward to Chapter 2 to see where it goes. So that is The Strangers, Chapter 1. Next up, we have a movie called Sting. Now, this is the second spider horror movie I've watched this year after Infested on Shudder, but I do admit that I enjoyed this one a little bit more. This is actually about an alien spider. So it finds its way into this girl's room, into this apartment block, and this young girl goes to find this, comes across this spider and keeps it as a pet. Aliyah Brown, I believe her name is, who played a young Furiosa in the new Mad Max film. And she finds this spider and decides to keep it as a pet, unbeknownst to her that it's actually going to grow in size and become this giant spider that roams this apartment block. And it's going to be picking off the humans one by one. It kind of starts with people's pets and stuff, which is upsetting if you don't like animals being killed in movies. And there's this one scene where this parrot sees Sting's legs come through this vent, and the parrot's shaking and stuff, and next minute you see the parrot just being turned inside out, on an after scene. So yeah, Sting is a great villain in this movie, I think. Kind of reminded me of Critters a little bit, but with a spider. It felt like an 80s throwback movie a little bit there, trying to be sort of B-movie style. And once you realise that, like my cousin told me, once you realise that, you'll have a lot of fun with it. And I totally agree with him. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. I did. I thought it was a fun movie. Sting always felt dangerous. And it was just a fun 90-minute horror flick. So I do recommend this if you like them type of movies. But I am definitely wanting to watch more spider horror now. I'm thinking I'm going to try and get Arachnophobia into the collection. I've never seen that film. This is just pushing me to wanting to watch more. I know there's not lots out there, but I want to try and seek a few out now. So that is Sting. Next up, we have one of my most rewatched movies of all time, and that is Face Off. There was a lot of talk about Face Off 2 on Twitter last month, and that just got me wanting to watch this movie again. And when I explained the movie to my wife, she said, it sounds ridiculous, but I want to watch it. So me and her sat in on a Saturday night and watched this film. Now, what I realised on this a lot more is that how cheesy this film actually is. Like, it hasn't aged very well, and it belongs more in the 80s than 90s. But I think that's what's the charm of the 90s. You got so many great serious movies and so many of these action flicks and stuff, and it all just blended well perfectly. That's why the 90s is my favourite decade of film. But yeah, this is basically John Travolta, who's been chasing down Castor Troy for years, played by Nicolas Cage, and he goes into a coma, and Castor Troy has planted this big bomb beforehand in LA, and it's going to blow LA up basically. So they come up with this procedure where he can take Castor Troy's face, go into this jail, and try and get some information off Castor Troy's brother. That is a ridiculous concept, I know, but somehow it just works in this film. And Castor Troy wakes up from his coma and forces this doctor to put John Travolta's face on him. So basically they're swapping lives, and it's good to see both of them in different roles. They both play the good person, the good guy and the villain in this movie. And John Travolta, man, he's just fucking insane when he's Castor Troy in this film. It's a great movie. There's a lot of great action in here, dated action, I suppose, but I will always enjoy this film. I think it's great. It's a lot of fun, and it's so easy to watch. Yeah, John Woo. This is what you're going to get from him, of course. So that is Face Off. Next up, I watched the Super Mario Brothers movie on 4K. Now, I did go to the cinema to watch this last year, and I loved it. And I was sort of, my wife was going out for her breakfast with her friends, and my son gets a little bit upset when she leaves because he's just so attached to his mother. And I thought, he's going to kick off here when she leaves. And he cried for a couple of minutes, but then I thought, come on, mate, we'll go and have a little cuddle on the couch. We'll put the TV on. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to try him with the Super Mario Brothers movie. And amazingly to me, he sat there and watched it with his eyes glued to the screen for about 15 minutes. And then he wandered off and started picking up his toys and doing his own thing. And I ended up just watching the whole damn movie. I thought, you know what, I'm 15, 20 minutes in here, I'm just going to watch it. I was really enjoying it. And yeah, it was as great as it was the first time. I'm a big video gamer anyway. I've been playing Super Mario Wonder lately and Super Mario RPG on the Switch. This was a perfect time to watch this, really. I think all the voice work's great, the animation's great. You know, it's just a really fun movie. A lot of kids' themes in there, but a lot of throwbacks to the adults as well, who've loved Mario for over the years. Great little story. I loved it. It's one of the best video game adaptations ever made. I really hope we get a second one, which I think we will. I think it's done really well at the box office. So bring on the Super Mario Brothers movie too. I'll be all up for that. That is the Super Mario Brothers movie on 4K. Next up, we watched a TV show, which is quite rare for us, really. We usually just watch films, but this was Baby Reindeer on Netflix. Now, these episodes are only like 30 minutes long, so that kind of gets me into it a little bit. I kind of hate watching TV shows. Not hate, that's the wrong word, but it's hard to watch TV shows with my wife sometimes because she always falls asleep, and I have to rewatch the last 20 minutes of the episode all the time. But this one, we both were kind of glued to it. And yeah, we flew through this one. This is basically about this guy who feels sorry for this woman who comes into the pub he works, and he gives her a free glass of Coke. And she starts to stalk him. Like, she's constantly texting him, constantly emailing him. She turns up the pub every single day. But he just kind of can't help but feel sorry for her. However, it does go into more darker routes, this, and gets way out of hand. Now, the guy who made this, I forgot his damn name, I'm really sorry. If you would have asked me a couple of days ago, I would have remembered it because I only just finished watching it. He actually based this on something that happened to him in real life, and he I don't know if he directed, but he starred in it and wrote this TV series, which is mad. And yeah, it's one of them you just kind of glued to. The woman who plays this stalker was a wonderful actress, I thought, but she was so. I hated her so much in this towards the end, but she's probably done a job there because that's exactly what you're meant to feel, I suppose. And it has a lot of kind of questions the main character in this as well, because he's kind of loving the attention a little bit there, and he can't let go of this person who's stalking him. So it's a very, you kind of just have to watch it. I've never seen anything really like this before. I wouldn't say it's truly enjoyable. It's more of a, oh my god, what the hell is going on here? Some very strange things happen in this, and it's hard to believe that this is actually a true story. How much of it is true, I don't know, but yeah, man. I mean, half of it at least must be, mustn't it? So yeah, and she did go on the Piers Morgan show and do a real interview, and she was quite strange on that as well. So I can actually believe that this did happen. So yeah, man, definitely worth a watch. It's only like 8 episodes, about 30 minutes long each. It's a very interesting show. I really enjoyed it. Well, not enjoyed it, but I was kind of glued to it. Put it that way. Look, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it, but not everyone is going to get enjoyment out of it. It's more of a dark tale, basically. Put it that way. So that is Baby Reindeer. Next up, we have my new release of the month, Furiosa, a Mad Max story. Now, like I said, I wasn't really hyped for this movie, to be honest, after Mad Max Fury Road, because I'm never really on that bandwagon. I did enjoy Fury Road, like I said, but I just thought, okay, this might be fine. IGN give it a 10 out of 10 going in, so I thought, okay, there must be something about this movie. My God, man, it's my second favourite movie of the year, just behind Dune Part 2. I definitely preferred this to Fury Road, mainly because there's a lot more story in there, there's a lot more world building, which I wasn't fussed on at first, this world and stuff, but it's definitely grew on me with this film. The places that are mentioned in Mad Max Fury Road, like Bullet Town and stuff, is it the Bullet Farm and Sutton Town? We go to these places, we explore them. This is basically about Furiosa. Like, it's a prequel, so I thought, oh, do we even need that? But I'm so glad we have it now. This is about Furiosa as a little kid when she is taken by Joe. Oh, what's his name? The character Joe. Immortal Joe. When he takes her as a kid, and as she's growing older and lives in this sort of, what's it called? It's not Valhalla, is it? The Citadel, is it? How she lives there and stuff, how she grows into this young woman, and eventually how it becomes onto Mad Max Fury Road, where she wants to help these women who have been taken. But yeah, there was some great action in here as well. The middle section of this movie was breathtaking, where this hijack sort of thing going on. We have this other character who was introduced who works with Furiosa. I thought he was a great character as well. Really sorry I forgot his name, but I haven't seen him in anything, to be honest. I thought Anya Taylor-Joy was really good in this movie. She doesn't say much, but you know, she's kind of a mute at times, but she was fine in this film. I thought she put in a good job as Furiosa. Not as good as Charlize Theron, but she's still fine as the character. But Chris Hemsworth was a standout performer in this film as the main villain. He was a guy you love to hate. He's just way over the top, and he's just having a lot of fun in this film. You can tell. Now, there is a little bit of CGI in this movie, but you can't. It's because you know it's there, but you don't really notice it. I mean, you know it's there because of the way it's made and stuff, but it's not really one of them when it brings you down. I'm not really a big fan of CGI or anything, but it doesn't bring the movie down or anything. It's not really an eyesore. The movie looks quite brilliant, to be honest. I had a great time with it. I really did. I highly recommend going to see this on the cinema while you can. Believe it's not doing too well at the box office, which is a shame. Because after seeing this now, I would really love a third Mad Max film, maybe after the events of Fury Road. But yeah, Absolutely fantastic movie. The score in this is great as well. It's kind of like this dum dum dum, like this really good beat that when you're in the cinema and the ice ends, it just surround all around you. And there's a great opening to this movie as well. I just want to mention that the first like 20 minutes and stuff, you're like, wow, this is great. So yeah, highly recommend this film, guys. It's fantastic. That is Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Next up, we have The Fall Guy, which I thought looked like a really fun movie. This stars Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, and it shows why these stuntmen are so important. I kind of knew that stuntmen are the unspoken heroes anyway, because they do a lot of heavy and life-threatening shit, man. And this movie just shows that. And Ryan Gosling has sort of put in harm's way all the time for this other actor, the biggest star in the world, who's this arsehole basically, but he's his standing stuntman. However, he has got a massive crush on the director of the movies that he's starring in, Emily Blunt's character. And it's kind of like a romance comedy action movie. It's a little bit over, not over the top. It's a, I mean, it doesn't quite land with the comedy at times. There's a little bit of a pacing issue in the middle of the movie, I think. But overall, it's still a fun time. It's an entertaining enough movie. Ryan Gosling just showing why he's one of the best actors working today. He is fantastic in this. I think the chemistry he has with Emily Blunt in this movie is great. You strive for both of these characters. You want them to sort of get together and have this romance because they just work on screen so well. It's a good movie. I mean, he basically has to go and find the star who he's the stand-in for, played by Adam Taylor Johnson, because he's been taken by these like gangsters and stuff. So it's all about Ryan Gosling trying to find him. So he gets himself into some situations and stuff. That is The Fall Guy. Quite enjoyed it. Next up, I watched If, starring Ryan Reynolds and John Krasinski. I think John Krasinski might have directed this film as well, but apologies if that is not true. Now, this basically sees this young girl who can see these sort of weird sort of creatures, if you like, and they are everyone's imaginary friends, basically. They are imaginary friends who used to have kids who they would talk to and stuff. They used to be imaginary friends of kids who've now grown up and they're kind of lost in the world. And it's basically about her and Ryan Reynolds' character, who can also see these imaginary friends, working together to try and get them to other kids, basically. And she goes into this world where they all live and stuff. It's interesting. It's an interesting story. I thought the character design on these imaginary friends was great. Some of them look fantastic. The CGI is really well done. It kind of mixes animation with real life, of course, kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit did and stuff, but this time it's kind of CGI, but it's a very crisp looking CGI. I thought the characters looked great. Ryan Reynolds and stuff, John Krasinski, they all put a job in. The main actress in this film wasn't great. The young actress in this movie, unfortunately, she's kind of forcing the acting at times, and she's pulling all these strange little faces, and she was kind of off-putting, I thought. That was a big negative of the film. Sorry, I know she's not watching anyway, but that is the truth. But there's a little bit of a twist in this film, which I seen about halfway through, and I just whispered to my friend and said, "Do you think it's this?" And he was like, "Yeah, it could be that." And it was. So yeah, I guessed it. I never guessed twists in films or anything like that, but maybe it was a bit obvious, maybe not, but I seen it coming a mile off. But yeah, it was an interesting movie. I didn't love it. It's a one-time watch probably for me, but it was fine. That is If. And last up, we have one of my favourite movies of 2024, and that is Challengers. I'd heard a lot of talk about this film, and I just knew I had to watch it. This stars Zendaya, and I forgot the main actors' names of the other two characters. I'm really sorry, but it's all about a terrible trio of trouble, as my wife called it, and tennis. Basically, this Zendaya character is an upcoming tennis player, and she is just like the hottest girl, and everyone fancies her and stuff. And these two guys who are best friends get talking to her, and one thing leads to another, and she has like a little bit of a triangle of love with them. And basically, it's them two being best of friends to sort of coming head on because of this character a little bit. And it takes place over the course of 15 years. What I liked about this is I don't really like movies that flashback all the time. I think it's kind of annoying. But it absolutely has to happen in this movie, and it absolutely works. Luca Guadagnino really put this together nicely, I thought. So basically, it's basically a tennis game of these two characters going at it back and forth. But every time, like a match would happen, like a set match or something, what do they call it? Every time a set happens or something, it'll go back 15 years and see what happens there. And then we'll jump forward to the match again, and then it'll jump back like 8 years before. And it shows you why these characters actually fell out, even though they seem like very good friends on the first flashback, and what's happened over the years with them and the Zendaya character. I thought it was great. I really did. It was such an interesting way to make a movie about tennis and a little bit of romance drama. They mix very well in this movie, and I thought Zendaya was excellent in this film. The two main characters were as well. It has a great score. The score has been playing in my head for days now. It's one of them. You just gotta watch it. You know, I mightn't be able to sell you on this film the way I'm talking about it, but I really enjoyed it. However, the three main characters are very, very toxic characters, but it's not toxic characters where you don't want to watch them. You kind of enjoying what's happening in front of you. You kind of enjoy this downfall of what's happening with these characters, really. Yeah, one of the best films of the year. I think it's in my top 3, 4. I had a great time with it. So that is Challengers. Hey guys, hope you all enjoyed this end of month vlog. If you want more end of month vlogs, I'll leave them in the link down below, along with the horror channel. What did you think of these movies? Do you like them? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please do let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much, guys. You take care, and I'll see you on the next video.